All right, we're going. My name is Stacy Now. Hello, everyone, and I am the Executive Director of the Kansas African American Affairs Commission. Welcome to our weekly Lunch and Learn. I've been gone for a couple of weeks, just various things going on, but I'm happy to be back today and joined by Hakima Payne of Uzazi Village. Hello.
Hi. Good to be here, Stacy.
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that you're here. We have been sort of going back and forth a long time trying to figure out when we can work into the schedule and how we can work into the schedule. And I'm grateful to have your voice here to join in the conversation.
I'm glad to be here.
The reason I really wanted to bring you on, Ms. Payne, is that I've had several shows dealing with Black maternal health outcomes, and we just came off of Black Maternal Health Week a couple of weeks ago, and I definitely wanted to bring you in because you are the CEO of Uzazi Village. And on Uzazi Village, it's a little cheating because it's on the Missouri side, but I know you deal with the greater Kansas City area, and you are such a force and such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to Black maternal health in this area that it would be foolish for me to not bring you in.
So, and we do have a Kansas office.
Oh, good. See, these are things I see. This is why I'm glad you're here. But for people who may not know who you are, let me give a brief little rundown of the bio. Okay. Hakima Payne, known to her community as Mama Hakima, is the founder and chief executive officer of Uzazi Village, a nonprofit organization dedicated to eliminating health outcome disparities in perinatal health in African American communities. She holds a bachelor's in nursing and a master's in nursing education and is currently pursuing a PhD in nursing education. Ms. Payne is the creator of the following 7 models of Afrocentric healthcare, and we may touch on all of these. Village Doula Program, which I definitely want to talk about the Doula Program. A Chocolate Milk Cafe, I love that name, a peer-to-peer breastfeeding support group for Black families. The Village Circle Approach, which is a group approach to the prenatal care model. Lactation Mentorship Program. A Perinatal Doula Training, which is a full-spectrum community-based doula training program. Culturally congruent care in a community setting, and a community expert review board, which is a community-based advocacy for research and policy. Ms. Payne speaks nationally on the topic of Black perinatal health and community-based responses to health inequalities. She also works tirelessly to make birth safer, the village healthier, and to promote anti-racist care models. And she's the subject of an upcoming documentary, Mama Hakima, which you said has been released, so we'll talk about that too, or at least it's finished.
Yes.
Yes, and is a lifelong resident of Kansas City, Missouri. So the first question I always ask everybody, though, is what are they having for lunch? Or what did you have?
Well, lunch is past, but I had some vegan gumbo. We have a vegan plant-based chef here at Uzazi Village, so that's what she made for lunch.
Wow. Okay, that sounds a lot better than what I had for lunch. A frozen meal that had lots of protein in
it. So they say.
Yeah. Okay, so now, again, you are here because of all the work that you've done for Black maternal health. And I know the situation is getting worse. So can you just sort of talk to the audience about that?
Yes, I'm hoping that they'll start to see a turnaround. But currently, that is correct. The data shows that the numbers are actually getting worse for Black birthing people and Black infants. So hopefully it's a case of where it gets better right before it gets worse, right before it gets better, and we'll start to see a turnaround. But because there have been downward trends in the data, there has been more focus, more funding, more research put toward this. So I'm hoping that all of those efforts will pay off and that there will be a turnaround sometime in our near future. But it is correct that for at least the past decade, things have actually been getting worse as far as health outcomes for birth and maternity care, postpartum care, and infant health.
That's too bad. Now, you yourself, Uzazi Village, I sort of read that little, it's a nonprofit organization dedicated, but how did you come to this field of work? I know you obviously started out in nursing. How did you come to focus on this?
Yes. So I'll start because people often ask, what does Uzazi mean? And it is a Swahili word. It just means birth. Uh, and I wanted an Afrocentric sounding name for my organization, and consulted the Swahili language. But yes, I started out as a labor and delivery nurse, and that was my early career. I thought I would go on to become a midwife, but sort of got waylaid in this health equity piece, because what I found, what I observed working my early career as a labor and delivery nurse really was heartbreaking and soul wrenching for me. I saw the difference in care that was given by race, that it did matter what you look like, and the care that you received was according to that. And so I found that really distressing, especially because everyone was in denial about it. When I would question things, these two clients, have the same situation, and the only difference is race, and one gets one treatment and one gets another. What is this? But I was always told, no, that's not what you're seeing. That's not what's happening. But which is a little crazy making, because clearly it was happening. And I used to work the night shift as a labor and delivery nurse. In fact, I only worked the night shift. And I started the habit of bringing my journal to work with me, because I'm a journaler. I love to write. And I would just write down everything that I would see, because I would say, I'm not crazy. I know I'm seeing this. I know that I'm seeing the mistreatment of clients. I didn't have the vocabulary then, but I actually do have the vocabulary now to describe what I saw. But I would write it down, I would journal it. And after a while, I started writing down, I started asking myself, if I could do something to change this, if I could create my own maternity care system, what would it look like? And then I started writing down those things. And that actually really helped me in my coping, because it made me look with more hope toward how could things be different. And when I was doing those scribblings, I didn't know that someday, I'd be working, actually doing those ideas that I scribbled out. But that's essentially what my work is today. Is I'm bouncing off those ideas that I had on those night shifts in the labor and delivery ward. I loved working with patients. I loved helping deliver babies, but I hated the politics of hospital care, and I hated the racism that I saw.
So Uzazi Village, it's not your if you think of hospital where people give birth, it's not that. So explain
No.
what it is.
So we do have a clinic. We have a prenatal clinic here. So we operate a clinic out of our space, and we operate a community-based doula program. Those are our two largest programs in the nonprofit. And we started out with the village doulas, and the clinic itself is about 2 years old. So we are involved in the work of creating and manifesting Afrocentric care models. So we basically are doing what I scribbled out in those journals on those night shifts. What do we think are the best ways to take care of African American women? And that's what I mean by Afrocentric care model. Other folks can come and take advantage of that. We have people of all races in our clinic. However, we have created care practices that are specifically aimed at Black bodies and that celebrate Black culture and Black ways of being.
What are some of the differences? Like what are some of the things that you've put in play?
So in our clinic, more than 90% of our employees in the clinic are African American. So in our attempt to create safe Black space for Black birthing bodies, we employed Black people,
Mhm, mhm,
and so because we know that those folks will intuitively know and understand Black culture and Black ways of being, that there's no learning curve. Now, it's not 100%, but greater than 90% of our personnel are African American. So when someone comes in, even the smallest detail, the art, and we have a lot of art on our walls, are Black images, images of Black families, Black breastfeeding babies, that sort of thing. The music that they're going to hear overhead is the same music they might have been listening to on their car radio on the way there.
mhm.
Uh, and so there's all these touches, but we also have, because we have wraparound care, we have midwives and doulas. Everyone in our clinic is assigned to a doula, and those doulas and the midwives are there to support them in their goals. So it's really based in autonomy and self-determination. We're not dictating what kind of care people will get. It's up to them. We are partners in their care. And in fact, I created a whole new language. We don't use patient. We don't use the term patient. We have care participants, and we don't use the term healthcare provider. Uh, I just created new terminology for those things that, again, emphasize that this is a partnership, that we're not dictating people's care, but that they have self-determination in what their care will look like. So we create goals with them and help them to see those goals through.
So if someone is unfamiliar with this term doula or unfamiliar with what a doula does in terms of the birthing process, what does a doula do? Or maybe
So
what's the difference between a doula and a
we get
midwife?
that question a lot. We get
Yeah.
that because a lot of people don't know the difference between a doula and a midwife, and they are not the same at all. They're completely different. A midwife is a healthcare professional who has powers bestowed by the state to deliver uh, your baby. So they can deliver actual health care. They can deliver your baby. They are healthcare professionals who are educated and certified to deliver babies. That's not what a doula is. A doula does not deliver babies. A doula provides emotional, physical, even spiritual support
Hmm.
to the birthing person and the birthing family. But they don't deliver your baby. They don't provide any health care. They
Okay.
provide emotional, psychosocial supports. They can educate, they can advocate, they can navigate, but they don't deliver health care.
I mean, those things are important. I remember when I was
Yes.
pregnant, you know, it would be nice to have someone who could educate and navigate and advocate, even
Well,
if it's
I
not
think
the
the
person who actually teaches the
navigation
baby.
role is really hugely important because people get so lost in the healthcare system, and so many of our clients will actually fall through the cracks, and the doulas are there to make sure that that doesn't happen.
And how many doulas do you have there at Uzazi Village?
We have, I believe, we have 9 right now. We have 9. Uh, and they are serving the clients in our clinic, but we're also involved in pilot doula pilot projects with insurance companies, and we're also involved in research projects with universities and hospitals. So
I read on your site one of the research things, one of the research studies to show that to start talking about how health outcomes are not as nice for Black women, and part of it is navigating a system that there is some inherent racist bias baked into the system, some systemic
right,
issues.
they just aren't listened to, and you can see it even in small comments. What I often tell people is that the manifestations of racism in healthcare are amazingly mundane
Wow.
and so common that we often fail to notice what racism looks like in healthcare. And so I do a lot of teaching on that,
Right.
uh, teaching healthcare providers how racism is embedded in policy and how racism is embedded in practices, and how people unknowingly perpetuate racism and racist outcomes without really being aware of it at all, because it's very mundane and
Wow.
happens in normal, average, everyday ways uh, that would take people by surprise.
Hmm. So you offer training. So if someone's out here watching this thinking, gosh, that sounds fascinating. I would love to become a doula. You offer trainings, a doula training for
Yes,
this.
so we do the perinatal doula training. In fact, we just got funding from the state of Missouri. I'm not supposed to mention Missouri on the show, but Missouri just gave us funding to do doula trainings around the state. And of course, Kansas is free to do the same. Follow through Kansas. Uh, but we are definitely involved in workforce development around doulas because we foresee all 50 states reimbursing doulas in the near future. So
Well, I
we're
know. I mean,
looking
because
for,
I've had Sarfia, excuse me, Sapphire Garcia
yeah,
Weiss on, and I know she does similar work in Kansas with the Kansas
yes,
Justice Society, and then
yes,
also Dr. Charlotte Smith at KU Med does
yes,
similar work with the Birth Equity Network, and
yes.
so I know that. In fact, that's how I first came to know of your work. It was through Dr. Smith. So I know that Kansas and Missouri, there are people who are working together, even though
Right,
Uzazi is located on the Missouri side. If
yes.
you're in the Kansas City metropolitan area and want to look into doula training or doula services, Uzazi is just right over there.
Yeah, and like I said, we do have a Kansas office. Our Kansas office works exclusively with Latina clients. So all of our clients on the Kansas side are Spanish speaking
That's cool.
currently. Yes, so we have a Spanish speaking doula there who works with our Spanish speaking clients. But I'm a big fan of Dr. Charlotte Smith and Sapphire and the work that they've done in Wichita. In fact, uh, Sapphire came here to Kansas City to get her doula training with us, and then she invited us to Wichita to train her doulas there. So her entire team has received their training from Uzazi Village, but love the work that they are doing in the state. And Kansas, of course, too, is looking at doula reimbursement,
Yes.
both through Medicaid and private insurance, and the
And
MC.
that was one win because I mean, there's a lot of bad news that comes out of Kansas legislature. There's a lot of bad news, but there was one win that they expanded Medicaid coverage,
Yes.
postnatal Medicaid coverage for a year.
Yes, and we're looking for Missouri to do the same soon too. So
Are you
yes, it
saying
would be.
Kansas did something good before Missouri?
They did, and I will totally give them credit for that one.
Mark
That was
the date.
fabulous. That was
Mark
fabulous.
the date.
One point for Kansas. 1 point for Kansas. There you go. So, but yeah, there's like I said, this as tragic as it has brought a lot of attention, a lot of funding, which spurs even more attention to the issue, and folks are really engaging the conversation and engaging solutions. And we're involved in a lot of research around this. So that excites me. That excites me because we collect. We always collect data around the things that we are doing to measure their effectiveness.
Fantastic. So about Uzazi, so obviously you have the doula training and the importance of the doula training. There are other services that Uzazi provides, like we touched on, diapers. I want to ask about this chocolate milk cafe because
Chocolate Milk Cafe, I'm very proud of. It is actually not under Uzazi Village anymore. Now I did create Chocolate Milk Cafe because I found that, I don't know if you're familiar with La Leche League, which is a breastfeeding support group. I worked with them for years to have more of a presence in the Black community, and that never happened. So I said, never mind, I will create my own. So I did create Chocolate Milk Cafe, which is a peer-to-peer, parent-to-parent breastfeeding support group where there's meetings either in person or online, and breastfeeding parents come together and talk amongst themselves and talk about their problems, troubleshooting, solutions, or just the joy
Right,
of the
right. Yeah.
lactation process. Uh, and in 2020, uh, Chocolate Milk Cafe became its own 501c3. So I worked with a
Um,
group of ladies out of New Jersey and New York who wanted to take Chocolate Milk Cafe to the next level. And I said, this is fantastic because it's really limited under Uzazi Village. So now it is its own public charity. And right now, I think we have 15 chocolate milk cafes in 12 states and still growing,
wow. Okay.
and one Canadian province. So it's
Holy
also,
mackerel.
it's jumped the borders and now it's officially international because there is a Toronto chapter. But I'm looking forward to the day when there are chocolate milk cafes in all 50 states. So that's what I look forward to.
And that, I mean, and that's so important because we know that breastfeeding really is the best. Not to throw shade on formula, but if
Not
a
at all, not at all. But
person has the ability,
if you're doing the work of improving infant health, breastfeeding has to be a part of that conversation. It just has to be. Even though, yes, it's true, everyone won't choose it, it's got to be a part of the greater conversation if you're talking about improving infant health overall. And these chocolate milk cafes are really impacting lives on the local level. Women are joining. Black women have long had lower breastfeeding rates and shorter breastfeeding durations, which definitely also impact the health of Black babies negatively. So clubs like this, like Chocolate Milk Cafe, where they gather, they get support, it helps Black women make the choice to breastfeed, and it keeps them breastfeeding
right?
longer.
Right. I think
So
one time I heard it
absolutely,
described that because breastfeeding may not be everyone can make that choice. But to
right.
give women supports to breastfeed, to have the opportunity to breastfeed and to breastfeed as long as they can, as long as they
Yeah.
choose to, rather than
Yes.
feeling like it's
Yes.
not an option.
Right. And a lot of our ladies in Chocolate Milk Cafe are breastfeeding for 2 and 3 years, which is absolutely optimal. That's what I love to see. So they're getting that support from their breastfeeding peers to continue their breastfeeding journeys, even if they lack support in their communities and in their families.
Right. So now the other thing I wanted to bring up, and I saw this on your website just today, that you're training community health workers.
Yes. So we did recently get approval from the state to be a certified uh, provider of community health worker training. So several of our staff have gone through Train the Trainer, but we've been doing the training for several years, but we did it for other entities, and now we do it under our own banner. So we're
Awesome.
really excited about that. Again, that's part of our greater workforce development plan, is creating doulas, perinatal doulas, but also creating perinatal community health workers.
And again, I can see the benefit of that, just getting more Black people involved in providing care for people who are
Yes,
going through the birthing
yeah,
process.
a lot of this is about workforce development because we lack the diversity that
Right.
we need. We just aren't represented in these vocations and these professions, and we need to be.
Definitely. Definitely. Okay. So this half an hour goes really quickly. So we're winding up. But I did want to talk about some things that are on your calendar. First of all, I see you're having your 11th birthday on May 21st. So congratulations.
Thanks. Yes, Uzazi Village will be 11 years old on May 21st. We'll probably do another showing of our documentary that just came out. It is called Sister Doulas, not
Here
Mama
we go.
Hakima. The
Oh,
the
sister,
uh, director changed the title to Sister Doulas. But
yeah,
I'm
tell us.
so
Go ahead. Elaborate on the documentary. Go ahead. Give us the details.
So it turned out really well. The documentary maker Emmett Williams followed us for 5 years. Followed me all over the country as I traveled around and did trainings, trained doulas all over the country, and did a lot of the filming here in Kansas City as well. And The most of the documentary, it's an hour long. Most of it is Black women telling their stories, and there's a thread through it of me, saying my piece, but mostly it's women talking about their birth experiences and their experiences with their doulas, and it's really really powerful. And actually ends with one of our village mamas having a home birth. So a really glorious celebratory home birth. So it's just beautifully done. It really tells the message that we want to tell. We don't want to scare Black women with all these terrible statistics. We want to restore joy uh, to the childbearing process for Black women and tell them that it doesn't have all these big bad scary things don't have to happen. That doulas are part of the solution. Education so that you're more selective about your care provider and your place of birth, and opening up all the options that you have, because a lot of people don't exercise options because they don't know that they have them. And so the education that the doulas do really open up possibilities for childbearing families to new options that they didn't know they had.
Cool. And you said you'll probably show that on the 21st?
Uh, on or near, we'll see.
Okay.
We're still working it out, so we'll show it one more time. But yeah, it's exciting to still be in the game 11 years
Yeah.
later, to still be creating new models of care and new products and still doing the research. So it's a real exciting time for us because there's so much happening.
Longevity, that's something serious there. And then you have a Black infant mortality awareness walk that takes place in September.
Yes, we do that walk every September. Again, it's just what it says. It's to bring awareness to the issue of Black infant mortality. And our mission here is to focus on Black maternal health and Black infant health. Although our mission says Black and Brown, we do work with Latino families as well. But the walk is specifically geared toward bringing awareness to infant mortality, the numbers of Black babies dying, and the powers that be tell us that most of those deaths are preventable,
Right.
maternal deaths as well. And to me, that's the stab in the heart. That's the hard part, that our mothers and our babies are dying from highly preventable causes, which means these deaths do not have to have occurred.
Right.
And so we're doing the work to make sure that in the future they don't.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I'm trying to see, I'm looking over my notes. I think I may have covered everything. I want to thank you again for taking the time to come on and to talk about the work that you're doing over there. I'm a big fan. I can't thank you enough for coming on. I know it's so important. And I love even how between you and Sapphire and Dr. Smith are just changing the narrative to a narrative of hope and giving people options and pointing us as a community in the right direction. So that is just
well,
fantastic.
I truly couldn't have imagined that those night shifts in the hospital,
Yeah.
being really down and depressed about what I was seeing around me would lead to this. And now, we're doing work I never could have foreseen, working with legislators and working on policy and doing advocacy work that takes us places I never thought we would go.
That's what you wanted to talk about, because again, it's Missouri side, but you want what's going on the Missouri side in terms of policy.
So policy. So our city is looking at having a citywide doula program. So I think our work here is definitely impacted that. At the state level, legislators are looking at all kind of reproductive health issues that touch us, and we've been able to inform and educate legislators. So a lot happening on that front.
Definitely a lot of movement on that front. Okay. Well, thank you so much. We're here at 30 minutes. And I can't thank you enough for coming on. It's always nice when I run into you out at different events out in the community. So thank you for taking the time. And we will be back. Yeah, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I see. And thank you for having me on your show. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Definitely. And I will see everybody next week. All right.
All right. Bye-bye.